Alright, today we're going to be discussing the fraud committed by Rita Crundwell. To start, let's look at some of Rita's background with the city of Dixon, Illinois. In 1970, while she was still in high school, Rita started work in the finance department in Dixon. Then in 1983, she became the controller and treasurer at Dixon. In 1988, she started stealing money from a bank account for the city's sister city program. She stole at least $25,000 in the next 2 years, but it wasn't until 1990 that she started the huge fund we'll be discussing today. Crundwell began this scheme on December 18, 1990. She opened a bank account for the city called RSCDA Reserve Fund. The initials stood for Reserve Sewer Capital Development Account. Except the city of Dixon didn't have such an account. Rita made this fake account and kept it to herself. This would be easy for her to do because she was the only one in charge of all the city's accounts and didn't share any of her tasks with anyone else. She would transfer money from various of the city's bank accounts, like their money market account, for example, to their capital development account. And then from that account, she would then transfer the money to her secret RSCDA account. In the first year alone, she stole $181,000. As the years went on, the amount she would steal would only increase. She stole on average $2.5 million a year throughout her 22-year scheme. And in 2008, she stole a high of $5.8 million. While working for the city of Dixon, she stole a total of $53.7 million. As you can imagine, there's not much you can spend $53 million on in a city averaging roughly 15,000 people, but it turns out Rita had a very expensive hobby. Rita owned RC Quarter Horses, LLC. She kept her many horses on her own ranches in both Illinois and Wisconsin. Along with the horses, ranches, and horse trainers across the country, Rita also possessed 2 houses, a horse farm, and various vehicles. The vehicles ranged from a luxury motorhome and expensive convertibles to more than 4 dozen pickup trucks and trailers for farm use. And a pontoon boat. To keep the scheme alive for 20 years, Rita had to hide it very well. In order to hide it from her coworkers, Rita always picked up the city's mail, where the bank statements to her fake account will be found. And whenever she was away and not able to do so herself, she would send one of her relatives to pick up the mail for her and then ask them to separate the bank statements for the RSCDA account from all the other mail. To keep away the auditors, she created almost 200 fake invoices from the state of Illinois to the city to prove that the funds deposited were for legitimate reasons. While Rita was stealing millions of dollars from the city, she continued to attend the budget meetings with city council members and other department leads. In these meetings, she would continuously state that the reason the city lacked funds was due to the state of the economy, as well as many payments the city was behind on. With Rita's comments in mind, the city would make many budget cuts that would end up negatively impacting the city's operations. In late 2011, Rita took a 12-week unpaid vacation. It's unknown as to why she suddenly took this vacation, but while she was away, another city employee took over her tasks and requested to see all of Dixon's bank statements. After looking at the statements, the employee went right to the mayor, who would then report Rita to the police. Rita Crundwell was arrested in April of 2012. Later that year, she pleaded guilty to wire fraud and money laundering and was sentenced to 19 years and 7 months in federal prison. Along with the sentence, Rita was ordered to pay all $53.7 million back to the city of Dixon. She agreed to the liquidation of her assets, and so far the city has recovered roughly $40 million. No one should have been able to commit this big of a fraud for such a long time. There were multiple internal controls, either violated or non-existent altogether. The 3 biggest problems were segregation of duty and lack of proper auditing, along with lack of vacation time. Firstly, segregation of duties. Rita Crundwell was not only put in charge of overseeing the city's finances, but also had the ability to write and sign checks, reconcile bank statements, and manage the accounting records. This made it possible for her to create the fake account, continue to fake invoices, and manipulate financial records. Another huge rule that was not fulfilled was proper auditing. The city should have performed independent checks and proper auditing for financial records. Although it is likely to be overlooked once or twice, because the scheme continued for over 20 years, it's obvious that the auditing was not doing its job well enough. And then lastly, Rita should have gone on multiple paid or unpaid vacations over the 2 decades she worked for the city. And if she did, the fraud would have come to light a lot sooner. The city should have forced Rita to take this needed leave, despite the trust they had in her.